Hello, everybody, and welcome to the True Love Talk channel. Here we want to learn about human sexuality and love based on the teachings that Pope John Paul II left in the Theology of the Body. I am Elisa, and today we're going to talk about chastity and consecrated life and the life of priests and nuns and all religious people. So let's begin. Okay, so the thing about this kind of life of vocation is that people usually think, oh my god, it's so pathetic. These are the people who don't have a sexuality, who have given up their sexuality. And actually is not true. What Pope John Paul II would teach us is that these are the people who live sexuality fully, first of all, but also they show us what the true end of human sexuality. They call it, he said that they would show us what is the eschatological end of sexuality. Okay? And, well, what is eschatology, right? Scatos means finish, ending, and logos, science, right? So it's the science of the end of times. Basically, this is the part of theology where theologists ask themselves what is going to happen when the world ends. And we know that the world is going to end on Christ's second coming, when he is going to be, well, it's going to be the judgment day, right? We are each going to be judged, and those of us who have chosen life, who have chosen God, will be resurrected, and then God, Jesus Christ, is going to marry his bride, which is the church. Let's remember that the church, all of us are the church, right? So Jesus is going to marry each and every one of us. The idea of marriage with another person here on earth is to learn the skills to be a good spouse for Jesus. So basically, what happens with people who have this vocation for consecrated life is that instead of having to wait until the end of time to marry Jesus, they marry him right here on this earth. It's like if they had a more advanced kind of knowledge, right? Like if they could have skipped high school because and start college right away. So they actually show us what sexuality is it's about. Remember that sexuality is not about genitality. It is about the ability of creating meaningful relationships of love, service, and respect with others, right? But the idea of sexuality being about love is to be able to love God. Made us sexual beings, first of all, so he could love us. We could receive that love that he gave us. It wouldn't be loving like a pet or something, but an actual person who could receive that love, but also so we could give it back, right? So we could love him back. And basically, these are the people who know how to do it, know how to love God from this earth, and they basically live with their normal spouse, with their eternal spouse, even in this earth, which is something that not everybody can do, right? And here's the deal. Not only do this means that they live a full sexuality, right? They live their sexuality as good as possible, but also looking at this kind of sexuality, right? Looking or staring at their sex life actually allows us to understand or debunk many of the myths that modern society has created around sexuality itself. For example, the first myth that has been created is that sexual sex is a basic need, right? Coitus is a basic need. Here's the problem. A basic need is something without which we would die. For example, food, water, sleep. If you don't have those, you will die very quickly, right? But no one, actually nothing on earth dies because they don't have sex. If you take a one day old puppy, right, and you castrate this puppy, and this puppy lives their entire life as a virgin, they are not going to die of virginity because virginity doesn't kill, right? They're going to die about of anything else, but not virginity. Same happens with us. If living things don't need it, neither do we. A second myth that is very common nowadays about sexuality is that sex, coitus, is actually instinctive. And it is for animals, but not for us. For human beings, this is not instinctive because actually we we can always decide and we can always choose and we can always say no, right? So on us is more of a tendency or a desire, but not a full instinct. Instinct is something I cannot say no to. For example, survival instinct, right? I remember on 9/11 when we were seeing the Twin Towers crash, right? I remember seeing people jumping out of the 100th floor, right? 100 floors up, and they would jump out the window trying to get out. This is the best way to kill oneself, right? Actually, many suicidal people choose this way of dying. The point is, why were they thinking that this would save their lives? This is actually a survival instinct moving on or acting because the idea of survival instinct is surviving, right? And here the brain would do something really weird and they would think, hey, we need to get out of here to survive, right? But if we go down the stairs, it would take us half an hour to get to the bottom, and it's quite probable that the tower would have uh, fallen onto our heads by that time. We don't have time for this, okay? But the window is right there, and it takes you 2 seconds to jump out the window. We're out, we survive, right? That's the message that the brain would give. People would run out, jump out the window, and only on midair would they realize that, hey, this is how I'm going to die because this is not the way of surviving. See, one cannot say no to an instinct, but we can always say no to sex. Imagine that you have a great date, right? And you're about to fuck. And this person is absolutely happy. You're in private, and you have taken off your clothes, and you're about to when you realize that this person has a suspicious rash on their genitals, and you ask, "Hey, what happened?" Right? And the person says, "No, don't worry. It's just a little herpes, not nothing much. Don't worry about it. Let's go on." If it took the person 20 minutes to get you undressed, by the second minute, you're dressed and showered and out of the street waiting for a cab. You're not going to risk it, right? Regardless of what is happening, even if you're ovulating, even if you want to, even if you can, if something feels doesn't feel right, if you just don't want to, you don't do it. As simple as that. So on human beings, actually, sex is not an instinct. It's just a desire or a tendency. And finally, the last kind of myth that the consecrated life helps us debunk is the myth that sexual abstinence would create mental issues, right? And this is very dangerous, and you should never do it. Let's compare the mental health of Mother Teresa with the mental health of a common regular prostitute. So what's the difference? Mother Teresa died at age 80 something, a virgin, right? She lived in one of the poorest countries in the world, in one of the poorest places of said country, surrounded by undesirable people, people who had been just vanished and devalued by everybody else, who were sick and needy, right? And she had one of the greatest lives. I mean, she always had a smile on her face. She always felt good about herself. She had plenty of resilience. She had a great life, and she wouldn't have changed it. Now, let's go to the prostitute, right? A prostitute has intercourse quite regularly. Actually, quite a lot, more than the regular person. And this is the kind of population who present a greater substance abuse, greater chances of entering and staying in abusive relationships, of being victims of violence, of thinking about death and suicide, and they have the worst self-esteem. And one thinks, hey, shouldn't it be the other way around? Shouldn't it be Mother Teresa basically crawling out of her skin because, oh my God, I haven't had sex in my entire life? And the prostitute saying, yeah, I'm so cool. What's the difference? The difference is that Mother Teresa actually had a great sex life because her spouse, Jesus, right, loved her so much that she could love everybody else. And she loved them purely and truly. And everybody else, when they saw her, they will tell her, you're amazing. I love you, right? You're one of the greatest people that I've ever met. You have value. I think that you are great. What happens with the prostitute? Yeah, they might have coitus or intercourse quite regularly, but every time they have sex, the client is saying, yeah, you're not a person. You're not a real human being. You're an object for me to use. I can buy you. Here's my credit card, and I am buying you because that's how little you're worth. Right? You're worthless. I don't care about your dignity, I don't care about who you are. I don't care if you're okay. All I care about is my orgasm, so you better get going or I'll sue. I'll talk with your pimp, right? And you'll get in trouble. So here's the problem. Mother Teresa had a full sexuality because she was loved. Whereas prostitutes are never loved, even though they have intercourse regularly. And that is what shows us what human sexuality is really about. It's about love. It's about respect. It's about self-worth and understanding the value of the person and human dignity and everything around human rights and humanity, right? So, this is today's topic. On the next video, we're going to talk about chastity in the other kind of relationships that we can have, and it's going to be very well, it's going to be our last. This is the conclusion of the Theology of the Body series. Okay, so I'm very glad that you decided to stay until the end of the video. If you have any questions or any comments, please write it in the comment section below. I will try to answer it as soon as possible. And well, see you in the next video. Have a nice day. Lots of blessings for everybody. Bye.